Hey mamas, I'm Brooke Miller, registered dietitian, certified lactation counselor, and a mama who has helped hundreds of moms feel like themselves again after baby, boost their energy, mood, metabolism, and even milk supply. Inside of the Postpartum Shift podcast, you'll learn how to take care of your health so that you can show up best for the ones you care about most. Each week, we'll tackle topics like nutrition, exercise, breastfeeding, mental health, and so much more. Plus, you'll get access to guest experts who will share ways to make your pregnancy and postpartum experience easier. Whether you're approaching the postpartum period or you're right in the thick of it, you're in the right place. Let's dive into today's topic. Hello. Welcome back to the show. Today, we are going to be talking about setting goals and one of the top mistakes that I see moms making on their health journey. So when we are setting goals with our health, whether it's mental health, physical health, whether it's, drinking more water or eating more fruits and vegetables or whatever the case may be, maybe you're trying to lose weight, maybe you're trying to gain strength or endurance, whatever our goal might be, it is really tempting as humans for us to want to go with the quick fix. And I want to ask you this question right now. If you had the choice to lose 20 pounds in a month, but then 3 months later, you gained back not only the 20 pounds that you lost, but 30 pounds back, or you had the choice to lose 20 pounds over 6 months and you kept it off long term, you didn't feel restricted, you felt good, which option would you choose? And I think most people listening would say, oh, well, of course it's tempting to lose 20 pounds in a month, but really, a lot of moms realize that the quick fix doesn't give us the long-term results we want. And there are so many reasons why the quick fix isn't the best option. So let's dive into that. It might be tempting to go on a detox or a cleanse or completely, clean out your pantry and get all the bad foods out of the house. It might be tempting to go from being a couch potato and not moving ever to going to the gym for an hour a day, 7 days a week. And this is what it looks like to be in this all or nothing mentality where we maybe haven't lived a very healthy lifestyle. Maybe we aren't moving our body. Maybe we're not eating many fruits and vegetables. Maybe we don't feel good physically or mentally. And we know we want to change. And it's very tempting in that moment when you hit this rock bottom with your health, it's very tempting to want to change everything all at once, all at the same time. And this is just a recipe for burnout. So the quick fix is not the best option because likely if you're going about it in a quick fix type of way or with this all or nothing mentality, we tend to do things that we can't sustain long term. So I'm never going to eat sugar again for the rest of my life. I'm going to work out every single day and never miss a day. That is just setting us up for failure because the truth is nobody can sustain that long term. And the likelihood is that when you stop whatever this habit is, whatever is restrictive, you're more likely to suffer way more after stopping that than you did if you had never started that in the first place. And this is because when we're doing something restrictive or really, really intensive, usually we're hurting our hormones and our metabolism in the process. So a common one that I see moms making is, I'm just going to, reduce my calorie intake. Maybe it starts with 300, calories a day or something like that. And then all of a sudden you see the weight come off and you're like, oh, okay, awesome. Well, what ends up happening is a lot of times when we're losing weight, especially if it's just through restriction and it's not any form of, strength training or eating more protein or anything like that. Like if we're just focused on calories and restricting and getting, certain foods out of our diet and going on a low fat or low calorie diet, what ends up happening is you probably will see some weight come off, but usually it's not necessarily the weight you want to come off. A lot of times we start to lose muscle mass and water weight, and this actually slows down the metabolism. And so this is where then a mom hits a plateau at some point and she's like, okay, well, calorie restriction worked for me, so I guess I just need to restrict more. And then she will restrict more. And then she'll get down to an even lower calorie amount. She likely continues to lose muscle mass, water weight, maybe some fat mass in the process as well. But her metabolism continues to slow down and slow down. And when our metabolism continues to slow down and slow down, what ends up happening is we burn less energy, less calories at rest. And so this is why a lot of moms will come to me and say, I have just been cutting calories and cutting calories and cutting calories. And by the time they get to me, they are eating less than what my toddler is eating in a day. My 19-pound tiny little guy, he is eating more than a lot of the moms at this point. And they're like, I don't understand. I'm not eating very much. Why is my body holding on to weight? Well, part of the reason is because their metabolism had slowed down so drastically because they're just continuing to restrict and restrict. Their hormones are all over the place. So one of the biggest things that happens with restriction, any type of, restriction, or even something as, common as over exercising. And I'm talking like to the point where you are exercising for, 3-4 hours a day. You're doing something really unsustainable and you're not fueling your body. Anything like this is going to put a lot of stress on your body. And when we have stress, these cortisol levels that are constantly just super, super high, our body tends to hold on to extra weight. This is what your body does in a state of stress. And so this actually backfires on moms. And at some point they realize like, I can't sustain this long term. And many moms realize like, I am, depriving myself of food that I enjoy and I'm not eating, when I'm hungry and I'm having cravings and I'm having binges. And a lot of moms realize like, I can't sustain this long term. So what ends up happening for a lot of moms is the pendulum swings the other way. All of a sudden it's like, screw it, I'm going to eat whatever I want. And this wasn't working anyway. And then they kind of swing the other way with this all or nothing mentality of, I'm just going to give myself permission to eat whatever, I've plateaued with my weight at the gym. So what's the point? I'm not going to work out anymore. And so this pendulum swings. And so, for some moms, it's a severe swing. For some moms, it's not that severe of a swing. It's just, you know what? I'm not going to track my calories anymore. And you know what? If I miss the gym a few days a week, no big deal. So for some moms, the pendulum swing is not as intense. But typically when this pendulum is swinging in some sort of drastic way, all of a sudden your hormones and metabolism are like, what is going on? What is happening? Now, all of a sudden, this person is putting me through this drastic change again, and I don't know what to do. And so your hormones and metabolism are in a state of confusion and stress. And this is when a lot of moms end up gaining more weight than when they started. And there's so much research to back up that the more diets you go on throughout your life, and I'm talking about restrictive diets, I am not talking about, I have been trying to eat more fruits and vegetables over the last year. Like that is not a restrictive diet. I'm talking about any type of restrictive diet. So counting calories, counting points, cutting out food groups that you don't necessarily need to cut out, if you don't have an allergy. When you're going about it in that way, 2/3 of women are actually more likely to gain more weight back than when they started. And so research shows that people who've never gone on a restrictive diet actually weigh less than people who've gone on tons and tons and tons of diets. And so whenever you're embarking on any type of journey with your health, I always want moms to ask the question, can I do this long term? Whatever goal I'm setting, whatever change I'm changing with my habits, can I sustain this long term? So I'm talking months or years from now. If the answer is yes, then go for it. Absolutely try this, see how your body does. If the answer is no, I could not sustain this long term, it is not worth it. So I'm going to tell you a funny story. Well, 2 funny stories. So when I was in my dietetic internship, I lived in Las Vegas, Nevada. I was in my low 20s. I was binge drinking. I was going out to the nightclubs. I was staying out till 5 a.m., being a, whatever person in their low 20s. And obviously in Las Vegas, your looks matter, especially when you're getting into nightclubs and they're ranking you. And it was just this whole world that I had never been opened up to before, because I grew up in small town Wisconsin where we wear jeans, we wear flannel, we go drink beer, we eat pizza. That is it, right? So this is how I grew up. And all of a sudden I am put in a place where your looks matter so much. Your weight matters so much. There was so much pressure on me. And not only just for the socialization aspect, but also I was in my dietetic internship. And so I was, about to take my RD exam. I was studying to be a dietitian. And so I really let my perfectionism come out. And it was like, well, I need to eat perfect. I need to prove to everybody who's around me that I'm a good dietitian and I'm a good student and I'm going to pass my test and I'm going to do all these things. And I just remember this point where my roommate and I decided it would be a good idea to do a juice cleanse. And so we bought a juicer. We had no money at this point because we're working 40 hours a week for free. Also, the ROI on becoming an RD, not the best when you really look at how much you have to pay for school and your internship and all of that, and then what your starting salary is. So that's my tangent on that. But we had no money, so we splurged on this juicer, and we bought all these mason jars, and we're like, all right, we are going to go on this juicing fast for like 3 days, where basically all we would eat was just juice. So the problem with juicing is it removes fiber and you're not getting any protein in and you're not getting any fat in. So you're just pumping your body with carbohydrates. It's just your glucose, your blood sugar is like, what the heck is going on? So it makes you super hungry. Again, you're not giving your body any fiber or fat or protein. And so you're not feeling satisfied. The cravings are out of control. And so if you like to juice, as part of a diet, it's actually great. There's some good vitamins and minerals and benefits. And so if you enjoy juicing, alongside food, not a problem. But we were going extreme because of course it's like, well, we want to look good in this tiny little dress that we bought. And I just remember I showed up to my internship that day with my mason jars of juice, and the dietitian above me was like, what are you doing? Like, she thought I was insane, right? And I was texting my roommate in the bathroom and I was like, I don't think I can do this. I'm dying. We got home and her and I, we hit this point, it was like 7 p.m. and we started binging on apples and peanut butter. And I just remember wanting to eat the entire jar of peanut butter because I was so deprived. My brain couldn't function. I mean, I literally felt like I was on a desert island starving. And so that was just one example of something that, why would I have even started that in the first place? Because there's no way anybody can sustain that long term. And of course, the science shows that just going on something so restrictive like this is not good for your body long term. And then this was right before I got pregnant with my first son. So this is probably 6 years ago. My husband and I decided to go on Whole30. And for me, it actually wasn't honestly that big of an adjustment. I have celiac disease. I've been gluten-free forever. And so for me, the hardest thing was giving up dairy. That was 100%, the most difficult thing for me to do. And I love a piece of dark chocolate too. So that was difficult, and I love a good glass of wine. And so for me, those were definitely the hardest things to give up. And my husband was like, this is so crazy. And he did a complete 180 with his diet. Okay. Because my husband eats more fast food. When we come back from the grocery store, we come back with very different food items. He comes back with chips and Oreos, and I come back with fruits and vegetables. And so it is really funny because even though we're married, we have very, very different diets. And so for me, actually going on this diet, it was restrictive, but it wasn't a complete 180. It was definitely removing things from my diet that I really enjoy and that I love, like yogurt and cheese. But, for him, it was complete restriction. And I remember getting done with Whole30, and I think the scale moved maybe 1 or 2 pounds for me. And I looked back on that 30 days and I was like, I deprived myself of cheese. I deprived myself of yogurt. I deprived myself of my favorite foods. I was working out 6 days a week, and I normally was working out 4 to 5. So it wasn't, again, super drastic for me. And I just remember looking back and being like, this is not worth it. Depriving myself, being this meticulous, looking at every single label. I ended up having to go to Whole Foods and Sprouts and 5 grocery stores that month because not every grocery store, had to get special ketchup and special salad dressing and just all these little things that were adding up. Our grocery bill was insane that month. And I just remember looking back and being like, that was so not worth it. And my husband, because he did such a drastic lifestyle change, he ended up, and he's a small guy to begin with, he ended up losing 14 pounds, which you might hear this and be like, oh my gosh, that's incredible. I want to do this. Well, he gained all of 14 pounds back within 30 days. And he honestly probably ended up gaining 15 to 15 to 16 pounds back, because the day that Whole30 was over, him and I went snowboarding and we were just binging on nachos. Like, we went out to eat. We had the biggest plate of nachos. I was like, I don't care. I just want cheese and chips and like, let's do this. And what ends up happening is when we restrict for so long, whether it's a week, whether it's a month, whether it's 6 months from now, the moment you give yourself permission to come off of that diet, you are so much more likely to binge. And so we look back on that experience and we joke about it all the time. Like, why would we ever put ourselves through that again? Because again, you could look at my husband and say he was a success story, but at the end of the day, he felt miserable the entire time. He was complaining every single day about how much he hated food and how much we were cooking and how much we were spending at the grocery store. And then, 30 days later, we were both binge eating. It was like, okay, this was not helpful for us. If you've been wanting to reach your healthiest weight and feel like yourself again postpartum without having to sacrifice your favorite foods or your milk supply, I've got a free workshop just for you. Inside of this free workshop, you'll discover how to boost energy, mood, metabolism, and even protect your milk supply. You'll learn common mistakes that moms make that actually cause exhaustion, mood swings, low milk supply, and weight loss resistance to become worse, things that moms don't even realize. And you'll learn the proven 3-step method to heal your hormones and metabolism after baby, so you can go from surviving to thriving postpartum. Plus, as a free gift, you'll get my postpartum snack guide when you come hang out with us. All you have to do is click the link in the show notes to save your seat today. Spots are limited. See you there. So I have a new mantra for you that I want you to take away today. Sustainable is sexy. Sustainable is sexy. So here's what I mean by that. Sustainable is sexy. So I want you to picture there is this beautiful visual. If you just Google, ladder, all or nothing mentality or goal setting, you'll probably end up finding it on Google. But there's this picture of this ladder and it's 2 people climbing different ladders. So there is one ladder that has a ton of little rungs. They're very close together. And then there's another ladder next to it and the rungs are really far apart. And so there's 7 rungs on one go and there's 30 rungs on the other ladder. And so obviously it's a little bit, you look at them and you think, oh, if I want to get to the top, I'll go on the right side with the rungs that are further apart and I can just, grab and muster and try to get myself up there quickly. And what ends up happening is the person who is trying to do that is more likely to fall off the ladder, and they might make it up 1 or 2 rungs and then they keep falling off, make it 1 or 2, fall off, because it's just not a sustainable thing, versus the person who's taking these baby steps. They're gaining momentum. It's getting easier and they make it to the top. And so the picture is the person with the small rungs, they have made it to the top of the ladder, and the other person who was trying to do this all or nothing mentality, they were trying to just reach up and do these big steps, they were still at the bottom. And this is exactly what it looks like with your health. And so sustainable is sexy. Focusing on small and sustainable habits is what's going to get you to your goal long term. And so it's so much easier to gain momentum when you focus on one habit at a time. And what ends up happening is when you focus on one habit at a time and it falls into place, it actually makes it easier to add on other habits. So for instance, one of the big things in my program that we focus on inside of the postpartum reset is blood sugar balance. And what ends up happening is when moms get their blood sugar balance through nutrition and through some habits, all of a sudden they're like, I have more energy and I have better mood. That's the first win that they have. Well, when you have more energy, it's a lot easier to work out versus trying to force yourself to work out when you're exhausted. So they focused on one habit, changing their diet to be more blood sugar balanced. All of a sudden they have more energy. And then their next focus is working out. Oh, wow, this is way easier to work out because I'm not exhausted. And then they work out and it's like, oh my gosh, my energy is even better now than it was. My mood is even better. What else can I do? And it just becomes easier and easier. And so you gain momentum because not only are you having these wins that complement each other, but when you look back and say, oh my gosh, I've been eating healthier for the last few weeks and I feel better. And then I started going for a daily walk and I'm really enjoying it and my mood is better. you're gaining momentum and you're like, I can do this, I can keep going. And you're so much more likely to be successful long term. And I think where most of us get stuck in this all or nothing mentality and we get stuck in trying to do something unsustainable, most of the time it's because we are focused on a timeline of the result. And so I can't tell you how many people have come up to me over the last 10 years as a dietitian and said, I have a wedding, I have a vacation, I have spring break, I have a high school reunion, I'm seeing all my friends. Like there is some sort of event that is out of their control in terms of date, and they want the result by that time. And a lot of times the result is in like 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks. It is in a short period of time. And so all of a sudden, when we put this timeline and this pressure to get a result by that specific time, and sometimes the result is very achievable. Maybe somebody says, I want to lose 2 pounds in a month. Okay, that is probably sustainable. But some people will say, I want the result of, I want to lose 20 pounds and I want to do it in 2 weeks. Like that is not going to be sustainable. That is not a realistic goal. And what ends up happening is when we start focusing on a timeline of the result versus just focusing on the results itself, you actually get stuck in a really disempowering state and you feel a lot of pressure and anxiety. So it's actually more important to just focus on the end result and focusing on what are the steps I need to take consistently over a long period of time to get that result, but not only get that result, keep that result. Because if we're just focused on getting to that result in a short period of time, and this is not to say that you can't reach a specific result in a short amount of time. It's just saying when we're focused so much more on the timeline versus the result, it's going to put us in so much pressure, and it actually typically backfires on us in this all or nothing mentality, because then we end up, starting to make decisions that are really unsustainable. And then again, anytime we make an unsustainable decision, we're just setting ourselves up for, hormone imbalances and a slow metabolism and cravings and binges and all of these other things. And we want to really steer away from these things. We want to make sure that we are making sustainable habits that are going to support our metabolism and support our hormones long term and be something we can sustain long term. Because when we reach any type of result with our health, we want to make sure that it is done in a sustainable way so that we can keep it long term. And a lot of moms I talk with, their big why for wanting to make a change is, I want to keep up with my kids. When I'm a grandma, I want to be able to play with them at the park. Like that is an incredible why. That's an amazing why. And if that's her end goal and that is her why, and she's like, you know what? I want to go for a daily walk every day so that when I have, my kids come home from school and they want to play, like I can keep up with them. Or I want to go to the gym a few days a week and lift weights. That way I can carry that car seat around and I can get on the floor and not feel winded playing with my kids. Like that is an incredible why. And that can stick with you for the rest of your life until you're older. And so sustainable is sexy. Before you embark on any type of change with your health, ask yourself, can I do this long term? Can I do this months or years from now? And if you ever feel pressure or like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I'm gonna hit this goal, like, I don't know if I can do it, and you're trying to make so many changes at once, ask yourself, am I focused more on the result or am I focused more on the timeline of getting that result? Because that question, I promise you, will change everything. So I hope you found this episode helpful. I can't wait to see you next Tuesday for a brand new episode, and let me know if you loved it. I would love to hear it in the reviews. It is so nice to hear from you all, and I'm actually going to read a review right now live here on the podcast. And so this one comes from Christina Harbart, and she said, I'm loving all the information I'm getting from this podcast as well as the postpartum reset program. I'm currently building a binder and being mindful of my macros. It's so nice to have a podcast to complement the material I'm learning. I have a 2-year-old and a 5-month-old, and I have been having an incredibly hard time. I'm going to the gym, but foundational needs for me are nutrition, hydration, and sleep. And I really needed to be reminded of this from the podcast. Thank you so much. Oh, I love hearing that, especially from students inside the program. So if you could leave a review, that would be incredible. If you can share this with a mom friend who is embarking on a health journey, that would be incredible too. And I will see you guys next week. Thank you so much for hanging out with me and listening to the Postpartum Shift podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, it would mean the world to me if you could share this episode with a mom friend and leave a written review. This helps the podcast reach and help even more moms. Come say hi over on Instagram at Nutrition for Mamas.